Good morning, fellow Nigerians. My name is Tope Fasua. Thanks for listening to this once more. I'm the presidential candidate for ANRP, Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party. Today I want to talk to us about restructuring. It's a very contentious issue, and it's something that, well, for good or ill, some fellow candidates have latched onto. But it took me a while for me to get on this discussion on restructuring, because again, I'm always afraid of cliches. When someone says there's a single bullet, a silver bullet, that's going to solve our problem in Nigeria, I may be wary before I buy such a rhetoric. And so I realized that actually, in fact, Nigeria has always restructured. Nigeria started, let's not even talk about when we were sold north and south of Nigeria by the Royal Niger Company for £859,000 on the 1st of January 1900. It was the turn of a century. Or when we were amalgamated in 1914, or when we were called the Federation of Nigeria in 1954, or when we had our independence in 1960, self-rule, and we started out with a parliamentary system of government, or when we became a republic in 1963. These were restructuring. And then even when the military came, they restructured us by force. And even the military itself, in their sojourn in Nigeria, they had different styles and different ways of doing things. They moved from regionalism to state creation. That was actually in the turn of the Civil War. And since then, we were creating states from 12 to 18 to 30 to 36. We also moved from different kind of allocation formulas between the federal, state, and the local government. We've seen all of that. I did my research further to find out what was going on. What exactly is federalism? And I realized that federalism the world over is defined by the country that practices this federalism. Federalism in India is different from what it is in the United States, different from what it is in most of Europe, or Canada, or Australia, or elsewhere that practice, even in Asia. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with Nigeria. I think the challenge for us is to say, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to achieve. I realized that it was since 1999 that we stopped thinking. We had a new set of politicians. They came and they sat on the system. They sat on the system and we stopped to think. We stopped to innovate. We stopped to even listen to ourselves. The allocation formula between the federal, state, and local government has been the same since 1999. Derivation formula has been the same since 1999. States have been the same since 1999. We are now at the epoch, and that's the reason why people are complaining and are asking, rightfully so, for restructuring. We're at the epoch where we need to make a decision. Are we going to create more states? Are we going to merge the states back into regions? Are we going to cancel a few states? Is that going to be possible? Right? What do we do with our large National Assembly, which takes 138 billion naira from us every year for having a few arguments on the floor of the House, whether in the Senate as well? Can we take one of them out, or how can we get them to be practicing, on a part-time basis and be paid on a part-time basis, as it is in parts of Europe and as it is with the House of Lords in the United Kingdom? How do we get that done? Are we not now due for state policing? I would support that now. I think the bogeyman that the state governor is going to use that state policing to hunt his opponents, it's overrated. We've come to the point where we should be able to have that. Number one, we're going to be creating a lot more jobs, and more importantly, the security votes that the governors collect now, sometimes up to £1 billion naira a month, will be used to pay the state police. And if they don't pay their state police, they're going to have a mutiny on their hands. So again, I want to conclude by saying that there's no way we would have a one-stop restructuring. There's no way Nigeria will restructure once and for all. It's not going to happen. There's no union that is perfect. Do you know that the United States, from whence federalism came, is still restructuring? Let nobody lie to you. Google it. The federal government of the United States gives grants. It gives grants. This is like what we call the federal allocation, whatever. It gives grants to the states and the local government. Sometimes they call it block grants, meaning they give it in bulk and for the state governors to use as they wish. Or sometimes they give categorical, in which case they may be supporting education or water or transportation or what have you. And I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The bottom line we need to establish in this country is to say that because you're a Nigerian, anywhere you live, there's a certain standard of living we're going to be establishing for you. And so wherever you are, we would go and meet your needs to a large extent, and of course encourage you to work and actually get your life better. So there's no way we're going to restructure once and go to sleep. We should actually embed it in the constitution of this country. That every 3 or 4 years we're going to look at what we have. Is it working for us? And if it's not working as it should, we tweak it. It's done in the private sector, it can be done in the public sector. That is my take on restructuring. That we need to do one right now is beyond question. That we need to do a kind of major restructuring right now, something that's going to actually get us to be more productive. That needs to be done immediately. But that we believe that, once we do it, it's going to solve every problem is a fallacy. And when we talk about geographical restructuring in terms of, oh, let these people go on their own, that one go on their own, it's not going to work. Because if all those unions that we break into are not perfect, if one of them has what we call K-leg, it's going to undo the rest of the country. And so we'll be looking at another situation of civil war. And we don't want to start that right now. Let us not engage in intellectual fraudulence. Whatever we're going to recommend should be based on fact and should be doable and sustainable. Thank you very much for listening.